Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and in today's video I am sharing with you my top fantasy recommendations for spring and summer. So as I am filming this, it is raining really heavily outside. You would not guess that it is spring or anywhere near summer right now, but that's London for you, and I'm going to channel my most spring summer energy as possible because these book recommendations definitely deliver in that kind of cozy spring blossoming whimsical just vibes. And if you are looking for books that just will represent the weather getting warmer, getting sunnier outside, just that kind of like cottagecore vibes, I think these books will really do it for you. So let's get cracking on with the recommendations, as I have quite a few for you. The first one has to be the most whimsical fantasy book I've read in a long time, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Now, I talk about this book quite a lot on my channel because I genuinely love it. I first read this like a year and a bit ago, and honestly I was blown away. I think you can't help but love this book just for its whimsical charm. It's just like pure delight. So this basically follows Emily, who is kind of a professor. She is a scholar in fairy lore. So this is a world where fairies exist and they're kind of like hidden away. Not a lot is really known about them. Obviously there are loads of different types of fairies, and Emily goes off to this kind of part of the world which I think is inspired by Iceland, and she goes to basically research this different species of fairies that not a lot of people know about. She happens to be followed there by Wendell Bambleby, who is kind of like the superstar scholar at their university. Everybody raves about him because he is just like excelling in his field, but he sees Emily going off to do this kind of special research. He follows her there. There's kind of like an academic rivalry there, but you know that deep down he is like actually just looking out for her, and he does have a secret as to why he knows so much about fairies, let's put it that way. It's just the cutest fantasy book where they are researching this land, they're getting to know the locals, they go on all these adventures together, and underneath it all is kind of like a simmering romance. I wouldn't really call this fantasy romance, though I do think I've included it in some of my romantasy videos, but it's kind of an understated fantasy romance. And the romance isn't really the main part of the plot, but you can tell it's there. And book 2, which is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Worlds, Other Lands, I think it's called. I haven't read that book yet, but I'm told that the romance really escalates in that book, which I'm really excited about. So even though this book is set in kind of a wintry part of the world, there is something so spring-like and summer-like about it. Maybe it's just the whimsy. If you're looking for something to give you those fairy tale whimsical vibes, this will absolutely do the trick. It's cozy fantasy at its best. The next book I really want to recommend to you, which is another cozy fantasy delight, is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. So this is part of a duology, I believe. I've got the second book, which is called A Fire Endless. That is somewhere down there. Again, I haven't read that book either, but I'm hoping to very, very soon. This book, I just absolutely fell in love with it. It was the first Rebecca Ross book I've ever read, and wow. This is perfect for spring and summer just because it's all about the natural world. And I do think that spring and summer is really when you have the opportunity to connect with the natural world a little bit more, like you're outside more. And this would be the perfect accompaniment to reading outside. Like if you're reading this book surrounded by nature, that's kind of the vibes of this book, so it would be perfect. This book follows Jack, who is training to be a bard on the mainland, but he is from this isle called Cadence. He's left behind all of his family on Cadence, all of his friends, because he wants to pursue his bard skills and he wants to kind of obviously go to the school there. But he is soon called back to the Isle of Cadence because there is something untoward going on where girls are going missing and there's all these kidnappings happening, and his kind of tribe believes that it is the other part of the island who is to blame, and they are kind of like a enemy tribe. So the Isle of Cadence is basically separated into two warring tribes, and Jack doesn't realise that actually it is his childhood nemesis, Adara, who has written to bring him back to the island, as she really believes that only he can solve this mystery as to why these girls are going missing. What is really clear though is that the island is out of balance. So the natural world really sings in this book. It has like sprites, it has fairies, there are kind of like, the elements are really kind of alive and ethereal in this book. They are kind of like the driving forces of the island's traditions, essentially. So the entire island is really beholden onto this magic in the landscape. So that's why I think it'd be perfect for spring. Some of the imagery of the natural world in this book and the kind of nature of Cadence just leap off the page, and I really would recommend this book. I absolutely adored it. The next book I really want to recommend is This Vicious Grace by Emily Theed. So this is a beautiful proof copy I received a good few years ago now from Hodder. So a belated thank you to Hodder for sending me this proof. But this book is, oh my god, one of my absolute favourite fantasy books, favourite fantasy series I would say. I absolutely adored this and ripped through this book so quickly. So this is basically set on this island. Again, there's lots of like islands going on in these fantasy books I'm recommending to you. But this is set on this island where they have basically been, I guess, cursed by this god. So basically the gist is, every few years on this island, a plague of monsters descend and threaten the existence of the island. And this triggers the creation of something called a fenestra and a fonte, or a font, where basically the fenestra's job is to be a conduit of power. So the fenestra has to marry a font who has the power to basically stop this plague coming onto their island of all these awful monsters who are going to destroy the island. And the reason why I think this book's perfect for spring, not only is this book a bodyguard romance, which I think anything with romance in for spring, chef's kiss, but the island is also a very like natural, rich place anyway. It kind of reminds me of like an Italian island, because like a lot of the words are inspired by like Italian, and like a lot of the kind of lore and world building is kind of, I feel, Italian inspired. So that's kind of the reason why I wanted to recommend it to you, because if you want like a good fantasy book to bring on your summer holidays, this probably would be really good. As you can see, the whole book cover has like little lemons on it. It is just beautiful. I don't know how well you can see that lemon, but basically this is a fantasy book set on a hot Italian inspired island. There's lemon trees in every household. It's just really a gorgeous like setting, and that kind of mirrors the spiciness that kind of is bubbling away in the background of this book. So this follows Alessa, who is a fenestra, and basically she is failing at her duty to be a fenestra in that every single fonte she marries, she ends up killing that person. And her touch is literally deadly. She cannot control the power, and the power ends up overwhelming the fonte and killing them. So she is like sworn off marrying anyone else. She's like, I just can't do it. Like, I need to learn how to control my magic. Otherwise, the people are going to rebel against her. Like, they're already showing signs of dissent. Then she decides she needs a bodyguard because there have been threats on her life. That's where she meets Dante, who she meets kind of like at this like brawling fighting ring, and Dante agrees to be her bodyguard. And let's just say there's lots of twists along the way, but their romance is perfection, and I love this book for spring and summer. I think you'll really enjoy it too. So the next book I would love to recommend is Girl Serpent Thorn by Melissa Bashardoust. So this is a standalone, I believe it's a YA fantasy book, and this is inspired by Persian mythology. The reason I really think it's a good read for spring and summer is because the main character literally has a power where she can create flowers, like she can create blooms of flowers. It's such a cool gift, and I really kind of love those elements of it, but really this book just was a complete roller coaster ride from start to finish. It wasn't my favorite, so a little disclaimer, like I did have some issues with it, but I must say that overall it was a very unique idea and a really fun fantasy book. So what's interesting is her touch is actually poisonous to other humans, and she's trapped alone in this, you know, in her room in this castle surrounded by her family, that she's not really allowed to leave, and the only thing that she maintains is her kind of rose garden on her terrace. So Soraya, our main character, is really trying to understand like why she has this power, why she is cursed to be poisonous to the touch. And when a demon is captured and is basically held in the dungeons beneath the castle, she approaches the demon in order to find out the reason why that she has been afflicted with this curse. This is also a sapphic romance, which is really great, and I did have a lot of fun reading this. It was very, very different. I loved that it was inspired by Persian mythology, and I think it makes good spring, summer reading because it's set in this world where our main character literally like can produce flowers, which I think is quite a unique gift. So a good one to add to your spring and summer reading lists. The next book I'd like to recommend is Heart of the Fae by Emma Ham. So this is based on Irish mythology, and again, the reason why I really want to recommend this for spring and summer is just because of the imagery of the natural world and the fact that you are just in this gorgeous landscape. I think it's really fun to read if maybe you're going away on holiday somewhere, or like, I don't know, you're out in nature, you're reading outside. I think it would be the perfect accompaniment. So this is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but mixed in with Irish mythology as well. So when a plague sweeps through our main character Saoirse's land, and her father becomes ill with this plague, she makes a deal with the dangerous fae, and in return for her going over there, spending time there, and helping to break a curse on his lands, she's hoping to find the answer in order to cure this plague and save her father. So this is your standard Beauty and the Beast tale. Like, it doesn't really diverge very fully from that kind of story in terms of like the setup, but what is unique is that this is a tale of two fae princes, one of whom has betrayed the other one, and it's Saoirse's job as she grows closer to Eamon, who is this kind of like beastly fae. He literally has like crystals jutting out of him, which is a little bit strange, but she basically has to get closer to him, find a way to break the curse, but she uses the help of all these like kind of Irish creatures and monsters from myths and legends, like selkies, will-o'-the-wisps, brownies, pixies, like the whole lot are in there. So there is kind of a streak of like this dangerous fae element, which if you like a fae story, you probably will like this quite a lot, but mixed in with that Beauty and the Beast myth as well, set in a beautiful rural Irish inspired landscape. I really love the setting of this. I didn't love certain aspects of this plot. I'm not going to go into the reasons why, as they are spoilers. I did think this was super fun, and if you're looking for something to add to your spring summer reading list, I would recommend it as a good spring summer story. I'm segueing into the next recommendation and the final recommendation, as I really do think fairy tale retellings are perfect for spring and summer because there is something whimsical about them. There's something cozy reading something that you already know, in a way that you kind of know the formula, or you recognize the original fairy tale within those pages. I personally love reading fairy tale retellings this time of year. So my final recommendation, just as Heart of the Fae was a Beauty and the Beast inspired story, the next book recommendation is a Red Riding Hood inspired story, and this is Crimson Bound by Rosamund Hodge. Now, I have recommended this book on my channel before. I am so surprised that, like, obviously this came out years ago, but I'm really surprised this didn't have more pickup on BookTube, because I absolutely adored it. I thought it was such a good book. Rosamund Hodge is such a good writer, and if you take one thing away from this video, please do just check out this book, because I don't think you'll regret it. I do think it's a really good book. So what I will say is Rosamund Hodge is really good at working around really complicated plots. So Crimson Bound follows Rochelle, who grows up apprentice to her aunt, who is training her in how to fight dark magic. So there is like darkness sweeping her village, her land. There is the threat of this dark being, this dark magic. And then when she stumbles into the woods one day, Rochelle ends up being bound to this black magic. And she becomes kind of like enmeshed with this darkness in some way. A few years later, she is working as kind of like a huntress. And then the king orders her to be a guard to Armand, who is his son. And Rochelle is essentially a bodyguard, which I really like because it's like a twist on that bodyguard romance narrative. Always fun. And she ends up persuading Armand to find this legendary sword which will cleanse the land of this darkness. So it is really a swooping plot. There are like many different elements to it. There is this darkness that runs through it the whole time. And the reason why I think this is great for spring and summer is just because of the whimsical fairy tale aspect to it. I think this is super duper fun. If you are looking for something so escapist, whilst also taking part in the natural world, there is a big element of like forests and like valleys and all sorts of like natural inspired landscapes going on in this book as well. I think it is a great book for spring and summer, and as it is Red Riding Hood inspired as well, it is that kind of classic fairy tale twist, which I just think is so great. So I absolutely love this book. I think I gave this 5 stars. It was amazing. Please do check it out if you don't believe me. So guys, that is it for my recommendations today. Not tons, but I do think all of these books will just hit the spot for you in terms of spring and summer reading. And they're all fantasy too, which makes me happy. If you enjoyed this video, why not click that subscribe button? I've got so many good videos coming up for you guys, and I really hope you've enjoyed the kind of variety of my last few videos as well. I've kind of been experimenting with a few of the videos I've been creating, and you guys seem to be liking them, so please do subscribe if you'd like to know more, and do turn on the notification bell just so you don't miss whenever I upload. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you very soon in my next video, guys. Bye.